Welcome to the OBR streaming network. My name is Brad Ward. This is an all-new edition of The React. The one and only Pete Smith is here with me, although you can't see him. He is here. I believe just a little under the weather, and I also had power out until just about 10 minutes ago. So we are battling through the chaos to bring you tonight's episode. Pete, can you hear me? Are you there, brother?
Yeah, I'm here. Was unable to be here on Sunday, and I wanted to make sure I had my chance to spike the football since basically I was right about everything. So I'm ready and here to go. But no one wants to see me blow my nose or clear my throat or any of that crap. So there you go.
Understood. Yeah, and so I was in the middle of preparing for the show when power went out about an hour and a half ago, and hour plus ago. So I've been scrambling for the past 15 minutes, but we are here to bring you the show, The React. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. As Pete said, he was right about everything. So we're going to discuss all of that. I will start with this tonight, Pete. So let's talk real quickly roster stuff. Royce Freeman gets added to the roster with the injury to Pierre Strong, and it sounds like today no Njoku. Also, DeJuan Jones was hurt. Stefanski didn't really lead on to what that was going to mean for Sunday. Do you have any idea about any of that stuff? Thoughts on that, and thoughts on the tackle situation as these guys are practicing still? Do you anticipate either of them playing, Conklin or Jed?
Difficult to say. I mean, Jack Conklin was sort of vague in that he just said soon. DeJuan Jones said he's going to be out there later this week. He intends to play. Obviously,
Okay.
it would be a big deal if he was not able to go. David Njoku, I would like to think the Browns can beat the Giants without him and that he can come back healthier for what is a feisty Raiders defense on the road the following week. So,
yeah.
If they can,
that makes sense.
They get the job done this week without him. Great. And then you're in a better spot with him, hopefully coming back healthy. It sounds like maybe he avoided a high ankle sprain, and it's sort of two separate weird injuries that, more time to recover would be great. And then Royce Freeman is somebody I really like coming out of college. Hasn't really amounted to much in the NFL, but another big body type, get behind his pads, runner. We'll see on Pierre Strong. I mean, hamstring strains and that type of thing can lean around, hang around a while. And then, obviously everybody has their eyes on Chubb. Is Strong going to be back before Chubb is at that point? So it's its own question. I mean, the Browns got, Jerome Ford is clearly their best running back right now. And then Deontay Foreman has a nice contribution. They didn't, we'll see what they want from Freeman. And then the other guy is sort of sitting out there that no one talks about is Hines. At some point, I think Pierre Strong is doing a lot of the things that the Browns would like to be able to do with Nyheim Hines in terms of put him out and empty, those quick little passes to him with that kind of speed. Those are things where I think that is exactly the role they want for Nyheim Hines on offense beyond his return ability.
Yeah, the forgotten man. And we just never hear anything about him. So it's an interesting thing with Hines. As we come up on the 4-week mark, we have to kind of start. People will start getting their hopes up, and I'm sure I don't know if we'll hear anything or what, but we should start to hear some rumblings about where Chubb is at that point. Do you expect him back after the 4-week period?
Impossible to know. And honestly, some of that might depend on how the Browns are playing. Like if the Browns are 3-1, they may not feel the need to rush guys back.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Browns have taken the approach that, 17-game schedule and all that. Anyway, Kevin Stefanski doesn't like to call it a marathon. He likes to call it 17 sprints. But the reality is it's a long season. And, there are teams that have done this really well. The Eagles are a team that stands out to me where they've been in-season injuries, they've been overly cautious to make sure guys get back. And then they are a team, and it didn't happen this last year, but in previous years where they've gotten sort of second half surge because guys are coming back really healthy as opposed to trying to rush back as soon as possible and it taking time for them to get right. If they can do that, if the Browns can take their time with Chubb and if week 7 Chubb is better than week 4 Chubb or week 5 Chubb or whatever it is, then if they can play better without him and then get a better version, then all the more, more power to them. They've got a number of guys. Unfortunately, they've got a number of guys on they're likely to designate to return at some point. But the better they play, the easier it is for them to sort of be like, all right, let's be patient. Because as we all know, the Browns' first half of their schedule is far more manageable than the second half. The second half is going to be a bear. And they're going to need all hands on deck, and particularly if they can get him healthier. I mean, one can't help but wonder if, with the offensive tackle situation, if that's also part of the equation. Now, I think in that case, they want to get them out there, but it does sort of ease your mind a little bit if you're playing winning football and you feel like you're on schedule in terms of where you are in the standings before you push guys out there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got a question here real quick before we get into our first video. Does Nick need to be active 12 games to make his incentives? There's something about the 12 games we learned in the contract, right? Is that his roster bonus or something? Or
I don't know about that, but most of his incentives are based on production. So
yes,
he's just got to, for his sake, if he's got to get to a certain yardage amount, it's like 1,000 and then like 1,200 and then something else. And I think there's some other things like that. Obviously him getting back sooner increases the chances of him doing it, or, it certainly wouldn't hurt my feelings if he were to run for, 1,400 yards in 7 games. So, that's the other part about it. So, I mean, the Browns have taken care of him in some respects, and they could always adjust things if they really feel the need. But, I don't think Nick Chubb is lacking for motivation to get back. It really just comes down to what's the best timing for him and the team.
Yeah, agreed. And then, I did remember hearing something about the 12 games. It has to do with some bonus, but not the, obviously, not the incentives. The incentives are all production based, as Pete just said. So good stuff. All right, let's dive into our first video here. So we'll start the night here with Check the Mic, 33rd team, the guys from PFF moved over. We've already watched the show once, but they do a little, week recaps of the game. So we'll dive into this one here. Since you're not on screen, Pete, I got to kind of figure out which one of these I want to use here. Guess we can use this one, maybe. That's not going to work. Probably need to be on here somewhere. Let's do, I could always do this. Bear with me, folks.
Passing line isn't great, but it was.
All right, here we go. So this is, we're going to talk Browns here. I'm going to make myself smaller in 1 second so you guys can see this better. Here we go. There we go.
Colts 10. Colts 0-2. Got to think about some things over there. What did I say next? Cleveland Browns. They get their first win. Browns 18. Jags 13. Browns move to 1-1. Jags fall to 0-2. Deshaun Watson looked better in this game. Like, the passing line isn't great, but it was probably his cleanest game in a while, believe it or not, despite finishing 22 of 34 for 186.
Yeah.
And from a Jacksonville perspective, I mean, outside of their passing attack was very disjointed. Trevor Lawrence finishes 14 of 30 for 220, sacked 4 times, including one for a safety in the comeback attempt. A couple big plays in there, 66-yarder to Brian Thomas, which was beautiful. They had some downfield passes. Brenton Strange had 3 catches for 65, but just a disjointed attack from Jacksonville. Weird game here, Browns and Jags.
Yeah, it was. You're right. That was Deshaun Watson's best game, maybe as a Brown. Like, the stats weren't great. He did get let down by his receivers a few times. Like, he had his.
All right, gotta stop it already. I don't know about that, P. I watched it back. I'm sure you did too. I wouldn't say that's his best game as a Brown. Maybe says it's such marked improvement from week 1 that it feels that way a little bit, but I think that might be a little bit of an overreaction.
I agree with his assessment from start to finish. I think Deshaun Watson is
really
game because obviously we all talk about the Ravens game. Oh, the Ravens game was great. First play of the game is pick 6. Like, he doesn't have that moment in this game. There are plays where
he almost threw a pick in the first drive.
Although, I go back and look at that, and you look at the broadcast angle, and you're like, wow, that's close to a pick. On the end zone, that DB's never going to make that play. Now, it might be incomplete, but that guy's never going to make the play. The way he played the leverage was really good. So, like, in terms of process, in terms of understanding what had to happen, I think he has had better throws. The Ravens game stands out. The Arizona Cardinals game stands out, like, where he's had just better individual throws. But in terms of just process from start to finish, and I know his passing stat line, you go, oh man, 100-something yards. But I think we both know if a couple of those balls are caught, like Amari Cooper in particular, it's better. And I don't care about if it's 300 yards. What I've desperately been asking for from Deshaun Watson is just a good process. Get the ball out of your hands. Get it to your playmakers. And he did that. You got Elijah Moore going right at the beginning of the game, Jerry Jeudy at the end of the game. Yes, a lot of the second half is sort of meh. But, like, just in terms of Deshaun Watson operating the offense in a way that makes sense, there are some things I can nitpick where I'm sitting there going, no, yes. Particularly on that 5-yard pass to Jerry Jeudy, where it just seemed like, just get out of this play. You don't need it. But again, he clean sheet. And that's sort of what I want from him yes, Deshaun Watson had a couple of spectacular, like, effort plays where he's able to avoid the rush and do some things, but just avoid stupid stuff. And unfortunately, that he was perfect until 3rd and 6, and then tried to wipe all of it out with one of the dumber things we did not apparently learn from PJ Walker last year. Just don't throw the ball in this situation. Just take the sack or get down and avoid it entirely. But again, clean sheet. This is the stuff I want to see. Now, I say this, and I want to see the next step, whether it's the New York Giants or the Las Vegas Raiders or whatever. But again, clean operation. I liked a lot of the decisions he was making in terms of where the ball was going. I didn't feel like it was forcing things. These are all things that we were complaining last year. I don't feel like he tried to make, outside of that Jerry Jeudy play where he, sort of squeezed it in there. I didn't feel like he tried to make any $230 million throws. I didn't feel like he tried to make any 14-point throws. I felt like he just managed the game. And that's all I've been asking for him, is what I said coming out of the last game when there were a lot of people saying, oh, he's broken, he's never going to be able to play, all this other stuff. He doesn't need to be a superhero all the time. There's going to be a couple plays a game, 2 or 3, where you need to be the franchise dude. Everything else is just being smart. And I'm sure we're going to get to it at some point more in depth. But that last drive, yes, the rollout and all that stuff is really impressive, but most of it was just playing smart, just being decisive with the football, getting it where it needed to be. And by doing that, it looks like a superhero play. That ball to Jerry Jeudy looks like a superhero play. It's just the right play. It's just the smart play. And that's where I think Deshaun Watson can elevate his game. I think PFF had him like a 77 grade, which I am quite sure would be the highest in any individual game that he's had, because even some of the games where he nominally did better, like Arizona or Tennessee, there were other plays, like head-scratching plays. This is one where, other than 3rd and 6, you're sitting there going, man, I can live with this. And it's maddening in some ways, because now you have to sit there and go, what are we going to get next week? Because I have no idea. And we had that week 1 game, and you're sitting there going, where is this? Now I'm hoping, and I'm sure you're in the same boat, is like, build on this. Hopefully this is an indication that the more reps they get, the better they're going to be, and the more it's going to flow. And you're sitting in there going, man, if they can get, David Njoku back from injury and playing at a high level, if they can get Amari Cooper rolling, if they can get Cedric Tillman involved more, if they can get the running game going, and Nick Chubb comes back and he looks like Nick Chubb, and you're sitting there, we go from, man, the season's over, to a world of possibility.
Yeah. So about the process, you're right. Yeah. So, I mean, he looked much sharper. He looked much more decisive. I guess maybe I just, and you're probably right. I guess my evaluation of it was more of like, yeah, there was never the big play or anything that stretched the field vertically. But to your point, we haven't really been asking him to do that. That's kind of, we've just been asking him to take what's there, and that's what he did. So, I thought the one thing that was noticeably different for me, and to your point, his wide receivers certainly could have helped a lot. A number of dropped balls, like you said, especially the Coop one, but where week 1, it looked like he was panicked at times in bailing out of the pocket. I thought week 2, he looked like aware of the pocket, I guess. There was a difference in the way he kind of moved around and navigated his way in and out of the pocket.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I do put some of the drops on him. I think some, like Elijah Moore trying to extend like that is awkward. I'm not going to say, I'm sure Elijah Moore is going to say, I got to catch that ball. But like, to me, I think that's both sides have to be better. And I think some of that's going to be the chemistry you get built, the starting to get a better feel for, these options, these choices, like reading the leverage and stuff like that, what it truly, what it's going to really feel like in game. But like, some of this is a product of where the NFL is going right now. The NFL right now, everybody's playing too high. Everybody's forcing you to take the profit and work underneath. And Deshaun Watson has not wanted to do that. Since he's been in Cleveland, he wants to push the ball downfield. That is what he was able to do so much in Houston. And that was a big part of his success. This is him adapting to what the world is now. And it's not just Deshaun Watson and everybody's doing this. Everybody's playing too high. Everybody's trying to keep things in front of them. And try to force drives to stall out, because the NFL is seeing a drop off in quality quarterback play. And you are seeing defenses who are playing better. They have adapted to the way things are going now, more speed, smaller personnel, all this stuff. But they're still defending the run at a reasonably high rate. So you are putting a lot of pressure on these quarterbacks to be able to sustain. And the Browns had a 16-play drive to open up the game. And I would, Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback in the league right now, but he got frustrated dealing with this with the Bengals and threw some balls that he probably wasn't happy with. But like, you get into some of these quarterbacks who don't have a lot of experience or are backups, because we're already experiencing injuries with Jordan Love being out, Malik Willis having to play. And we're going to see Skylar Thompson, some of these other guys go down, or the rookies that are playing, Bo Nix and all these guys. They have to be able to sustain and take the profit. And what's the net result? Scoring is way down right now. Yes. It looks like 1994 in terms of passing, where we're seeing Troy Aikman like stat lines, where it's just not, you're not getting those 400-yard days. You're not getting the big plays down the field. Doesn't mean they don't exist. Obviously, we saw it with Brian Thomas, who has made a phenomenal play on that. Like, I know people want to kill Greg Newsome because they don't like Greg Newsome, but like, that was just a phenomenal play by the rookie. He out-muscled him and still tracked the ball. All props to him. But hopefully the Browns get to a point where they can do that and get some of those bigger plays. But right now, I'm thrilled with Watson being able to work under the constraints of what he is and make it work. And he's going to have to do that most likely this week.
Yeah, you're right. So good stuff there. The Brian Thomas play was It was funny. Greg was right there. He was running with him. He was in perfect position, and he just got bodied right out of the picture. And a good job by Thomas not to use his hands at all. Just kind of hip checked him. All right, let's get back to the video here.
His adjusted completion rate is good because his receivers dropped a few passes.
4 or 5 drops in there.
Yeah. If they get that level of play, as evidenced by this game, if they get that level of play out of Deshaun Watson every game this season, they're going to win quite a lot of games because that's good enough.
Yep.
And honestly, that's what they're targeting at this point from Watson, is just be good enough for this thing to work.
He had some of the sack avoidance magic plays that he'd had, in the past as well.
Yeah, like it was, again, I don't think that the player he was in Houston is ever coming back, but this is the guy they're looking for, right? If this is what they get going forward, that's good enough, and that's what they're shooting for. That was an encouraging thing from Cleveland's point of view. The defense was a lot better. It didn't get gashed nearly as much. There was that really nice play to Brian Thomas Jr., who had an up and down game. Like, that play was amazing. It was actually really, really nice. Single coverage, again, falls into the bucket of things he's supposed to be good at. But when you watch the play, you understand how he's so good at those. Like, he obviously the speed plays, but he kind of lent on, was it Greg Newsome, the corner? Kind of lent on him a bit and then backed, leaned off at the last moment to gain that separation. Like, they're not, every receiver that's good at running fast in a straight line is not good at that, which is how you get like 1.5 yards open at the catch point, as opposed to just you've been able to run step for step with the corner and it's still contested. Like that, being able to manufacture that last second space is really good. But he also dropped a slant in there, and it's like, okay, those happen. Malik Neighbors dropped an important pass as well, but those are the plays that he needs to be good at as well.
Yeah, I mean, overall, pretty impressive, but it was like that. I was looking at it. The Jags' EPA per play ended up fine, but the success rate was low in this game. So the EPA per play comes in those chunk plays are going to skew it, but it was just this rhythm thing. Like the thing I was criticizing the Browns for was what the Jags felt like in this game. Just no rhythm, just no consistency from an offensive perspective. But they had big plays. They had some big runs. They had some chunk plays in the pass game. The Jags just don't feel like they're playing winning football right now. Red zone, short yardage. It's just not taking the safety. Like, it's just not winning football for the Jags right now. And maybe it would feel different if they didn't blow the lead against the Dolphins last week.
Right.
But they're 1-7 in their last 8 games. And they have been very streaky under Doug Peterson now at this point. Remember, Peterson did this amazing job of resetting the culture for Urban Meyer, getting Trevor Lawrence back on track, but they started slow, right? They started slow in 2022. Of course they did, because they're coming off the Urban Meyer year, and now, was it 22? We in the right year? But then they finished strong, and then last year they started strong, and they finished horribly. They've been horribly streaky, and I just don't feel like the Jags are just playing winning football right now when they need to.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. They haven't been playing particularly well at all. Like, again, it's individuals play well. Like Josh Hines-Allen had a great game. Now, look who he was going up against. It's the backup offensive tackle. And I'm using singular there. They have one backup offensive tackle, the Browns, that is problematic, right? James Hudson at left tackle. That's not good. That's a problem. That's exploitable by players like Josh Hines-Allen. The other backup offensive tackle is DeJuan Jones at right tackle, who honestly is probably their starter from this point going forward, right? Jack Conklin is reaching the end of his career, or at least the end of his career in Cleveland, given his contract. DeJuan Jones is going to be starting there sooner rather than later anyway, and he's good.
They were moving Conklin to left tackle at practice.
Yeah. Either way, just stop. They don't have a pair of backup offensive tackles playing. They have one. They have one problematic backup that's out there. DeJuan Jones is effectively a starter, and he isn't bad, so it's not a problem. It's not a reason that anything is struggling. Anyway, the point is the Jags have had, individuals are playing well. The team is not playing well.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I don't want to overrate the narrative here. I thought it was a pretty even game from both teams. The Jags were 1 for 3 in goal-to-go possessions. This is one of those games where it's like the play for play was similar.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it was not an even game to me. I mean, if you look at the numbers and some of the things he's talked about, I get how you get to that conclusion. This game should have been over in the first half.
Yeah.
You don't get that. If Amari Cooper catches that ball, we'll see what happens. At the very least, it's a first down. They potentially score a touchdown, but even if they don't, it's 10-0. The preceding play, Winston Reed separates Tank Bigsby from the football, and it's a penalty because Dustin Hopkins just wandered off. Somehow he jogged 15 yards from where the kickoff happens to get that penalty. And if that happens and the Browns score again, let's say it's 17, it's 3 scores against this defense, the way the Jags have been playing, where now you get to tee off endlessly. Like, no, I don't see that how that happens. In addition to some of the other stuff that happened in the second half, but I mean, at that point, I think the Browns defense has you in a sleeper hold with what they can do with their pass rush. I mean, the Alex Wright safety is what the Browns want to be pass rush wise. Like, that is it.
Yeah.
Where they have all those big long ends just able to stunt and all these other things. And Alex Wright is able to line up super wide because they're so leveraged to Garrett and just cause all these problems. Like, that safety, Trevor Lawrence is terrified of Myles Garrett and he steps up in the pocket, but he also should be worried about Zadarius Smith, who's also coming. And then Alex Wright's there, who does a great job beating the guard and then being able to just get away from the center to get the safety. Like, if that was going to be the second half for them, I think the Browns were eventually going to pick. Well, I say that considering the Browns DBs have the worst hands in football, worse than the receivers right now. But I think at some point something was going to give and it was going to break open, either another sack fumble or some turnover, and the floodgate was going to open, because I think, and I was hoping that was going to be the week it happened, but I think at some point, and it potentially could be this week, where, talk about all the things that like Deshaun Watson did. And again, why process is better. That is the first time he has led a first drive touchdown as a member of the Browns. And they scored their first 3 possessions. And they scored their first 3 possessions. And this is a guy who has said all offseason, I'm a notoriously slow starter. Well, if they can get him to go and get 3 scoring possessions right in a row every game, and he's going to get better in the second half, well, then suddenly we're talking about, hey, franchise quarterback, we're actually going to get the guy that they, signed up. But even if they don't, even if they, if he's just pretty good, and you get 2 scores on this defense, and now they can just pin their ears back and go at the opponent, like, you're going to start getting turnovers and put away games, which we've sort of seen, and you're going to get those lopsided results. The other thing that Steve Palazzolo sort of mentioned was like the Jags being, disjointed. That is what Jim Schwartz's defense wants to do. It wants to knock you off schedule. It wants to just make one play and force a punt or whatever, but it's also going to give up a couple of those big plays. Trevor Lawrence's scrambles, the Brian Thomas reception, a couple of plays to Brenton Strange. Like, it is a risk reward defense. And like, it's frustrating because like now fans have sort of been exposed to this long enough where you're starting to see, oh crap, like there's this part of you going, why are you still blitzing? Like, it's not working. They're starting to split. So you're starting to get people who are like sort of seeing the other side of this and going, I love you, Jim Schwartz, so please stop doing this. But it is risk reward. Like, the whole point is it wants to get the opponent off rhythm. It wants to get them. Now, the Jags sort of found it a little bit in the second half, which is when they started moving the ball and they got their touchdown, and people started getting a little bit sort of worried that the Browns were going to lose this game. But like, that's the name of the game. Get them off rhythm. That's all Jim Schwartz wants to do. And I know he's making a larger point in terms of the Jaguars, and I think it's something like 7 games in a row they've been sort of just off. But like, that is Jim Schwartz in a nutshell. That is what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think 7 of their last 8 or 7 straight Lawrence starts or something like that. It's pretty crazy. The thing I was going to say that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, Pete, in this one in regards to the defense is, I think it's pretty impactful that they went on the road and played this way, based on the narrative. the narrative that they couldn't go on their weakness was playing defense on the road last year. Now, we've talked about this, you and I have, and a lot of people have, that if you kind of do the math of what quarterbacks were on the road and which ones were at home, that makes there's a little more to that. But still, to start the season with a good road defensive performance is a nice way to kind of get that monkey off your back.
They also flipped the script a little bit. Their red zone efficiency was awful last year. Like, it was the worst in the league. So either the Browns would get a 3-and-out or they'd give up a touchdown. There was not a whole lot of in between. Whereas this game, they played a sort of, yes, they had a lot of big stops. I mean, the Jaguars had 1 yard after the first quarter, but they also were able to make the big stops in the red zone and force field goals. And obviously, given the way this game ended, that became critical. But like, if they can, we sort of came into this season going, well, how are they going to possibly sustain? There's got to be some drop off a little bit. Well, there may be in some ways, but if they just correct some of the wildly bad things they were doing last year, like the red zone efficiency, like overall, you're still going to be like one of the top defenses in the league, which is sort of what you got out of this game.
Yeah. Delpit, JOK coming up to play the run. I thought that was one part that really jumped off the film, is they were tremendous, both of them coming up to play to kind of stop the run and discourage it. I feel like the Jaguars probably could have game planned a little bit better, or at least play called a little bit better. Doug Peterson kind of not sticking to the run more at times felt a little self-detrimental, but the Browns certainly hurt themselves just as much. So,
well, they tried the one end around and the Browns stopped it. So
they did stop. You're absolutely right. That is progress right there. All right, you're watching the React. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell. It doesn't take any time. It's completely free. We appreciate you tuning in to the OBR streaming network. This is the React. Pete Smith, not visible tonight, but he is here. My name is Brad Ward. We're going to go on to the next video here. This is from the Fan in New York. Boomer and Geo with not Chris Sims, but his dad, Phil Sims. Probably should say that the other way around. Phil Sims' son, Chris, but Phil Sims talking Giants and Browns matchup coming up this weekend in Cleveland. Let's jump on over to this here.
Giants as they go to the Browns. Malik Neighbors really turned it on last week, and so did Daniel Jones. I thought one of the better games that Daniel has played in the last year and a half, 2 years. He was on point. They found Malik Neighbors. They got him involved. Their offense did a pretty good job of protecting him. Now they go on the road against Cleveland, who does have one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and Myles Garrett. This is not going to be easy for the Giants this week.
That's an understatement there, Boomer Esiason. As I was watching it, I actually wrote some notes down this morning and said Boomer, and then I put in parentheses Bruce Smith.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, that kind of gets you going, doesn't it, thinking about that?
Phil Sims, like his son, a Browns honk a little bit, right?
And that's what Daniel Jones has coming this week. Myles Garrett is unbelievable. The talent. And first, I'll say this about Cleveland's defense. It is all out every play. And that's bad for the offense, but the good thing is it's all out. So if you can get away from one guy or something good happen, you can get big plays. But boy, they make you pay for everything. And they're extremely, extremely aggressive. Everybody. They really almost overplay every play. They're just willing to take those kind of chances. And, with Jim Schwartz's defense, not a shock, of course. We all know him very well from wherever he's coached. It's just one thing. Let's just go. And they cover awesome. So this is going to be a big-time test for the New York Giants. How do you keep Myles Garrett out of the backfield? This other guy on the other side is Zadarius Smith. He's really good. They got to fight Jim Schwartz. And the corners and the secondary of Cleveland, it's awesome. So the Giant receivers – formations, lots of stuff. You're going to have to help them get open. And just to go back to this, what you said about the game last week by Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors, if he makes the catch, the Giants, I think at worst, are going to go into overtime. But I think they would have had a chance to win the game right there with 4 downs to score a touchdown and eat up the clock and all that, and that didn't happen. So that was a huge play in the game, of course.
I'll preface this by saying I like Brian Daboll a lot. I think he's a good coach, but I do feel like this is could be a tipping point in his career as Giants head coach because of how the schedule gets a hell of a lot tougher. We needed to see them at least win one of these first 2 games against the Vikings or the Commanders. They lost both of them. He's getting pounded by the media about the Graham Gano kicker stuff.
Oh,
and it
gosh.
just, for the first time, it felt like things were very uneasy with Brian Daboll at the helm. What do you think about his ability to make sure the season doesn't go completely off the rails?
Well, many things, to not let the team, start thinking about some of this stuff and just keep the energy up. And there's many ways to keep the energy up, changing practice, whatever, but really just designing more plays and trying to be a little more creative to help your football team, especially the weak spots, wherever that is on your football team. Like last week, I thought they did a good job of, getting the ball to Malik Neighbors, a little more stuff on the offense. Daniel Jones runs I thought were important. And I think that's what you do as a coach. But, it's 2 games, and they're not going to, I'm sure, inside the building, they're not panicking. But I understand the sense of urgency, especially you're playing a Cleveland Browns team where the defense, they're going to be at home too, of course, Cleveland. They're very good. I mean.
What do you think of Daboll as a coach, Pete?
I think he's going to be a great consultant for the Browns. Fantastic. I don't have a problem. I just think the Giants are so bad. They're just, he's in over his head in terms of the situation. Like, they have just become a mess. Like, obviously, if the Hard Knocks thing is whatever. Like, signing Saquon Barkley was not going to save that team. They're bad. It made sense to let him go and be happy somewhere else and just bottom out. The problem is when you do that, the head coach isn't going to be there to stick around. Like, and if, let's say they do bottom out, they're going to be potentially one of the worst teams in the league. Who are they going to get to save them? Like, is it going to be, Quinn Ewers? Like, what,
Yeah.
Maybe he's that good. I don't know. But like, I just look at the Giants and I look at, hey, they've got this really good defensive line and very little behind it, or what they hope is a good defensive line. Like, Dexter Lawrence is legit. He's first small pro caliber defensive player of the year conversation guy at a weird spot that will never get the recognition because he's a nose. But if Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau are good, like, you've got something there, but very little else behind it. Offensively, you don't have a quarterback, and your offensive line is slightly better. You seem to have a legit star in the making in Malik Neighbors, but beyond that, like, not much there. So, if they're willing to stick it out and let these guys keep going, so be it. Maybe they'll eventually get it turned around, but I think it's going to take another year, potentially more, for them to start, seeing meaningful progress because they're playing in a tough division. I don't see the Eagles are not going to die. The Cowboys are, for all their issues, obviously, they took it to the Browns for starters and losing the Saints, but somehow they wound up 12-4 and then losing the first round of the playoffs. That is, they are sort of in a world where the Browns have been for a long time, where like it's difficult to make headway. And so your best hope is that the Commanders continue to be a dysfunctional organization that allows you to make up ground. But like, is that going to happen? To be determined. They've got new ownership, and maybe that will take time. Obviously, we've seen how long a new owner can take. Carolina, they're not going great, but I don't know where you're going to find a whole lot of wins for the Giants, given their situation, given Daniel Jones at the quarterback, and all these other things. Now, having said that, the Browns better beat them because if they are that bad, you better not lose to them at home. It will be a massively missed opportunity, but like, I think Brian Daboll did a phenomenal job with Josh Allen, and I don't think they've been able to replicate it in quite the same way. But
maybe the 1 year, the year that you kind of wish didn't happen because they based the contract on it, right? Like the year they went to the playoffs and he looked great, really good in the playoffs, right? And then kind of everybody figured him out.
So I sit here and go, hey, I would love Brian Dable to come hang out with DTR for a year and just work with him endlessly. So who knows? We'll see. I mean, the Browns are aggressive in that regard, but it wouldn't shock me if Joe Shane and Brian Dable are let go if they're another bottom out year. Maybe they'll hang on to them just to try to really finish getting through it and then try to hire somebody on the upswing, or maybe they'll let them figure it out. But I don't feel good about that situation turning around in the near future.
Interesting. All right. Let's continue with this for a minute.
Very good. So the Giant defense needs to help their offense in this game. Deshaun Watson last week, first half, I thought, oh, my gosh, this is the best I've seen him play in a long time. But then he turned into the guy that we've seen again. Every play was taken to the utmost whatever. I'm going to make the play. And he just got out of control, I thought, and played dangerously in a game where they were kind of dominating the pace of play and everything. So maybe the Giants can get him in that situation and get him playing that style of game, which is still not what he's really great at. He's not the same guy we saw in Houston. Everybody's talked about that. It did look better last week, but still not the same guy we saw, years ago, making every play with his legs and his arm.
Well, the amazing thing for me is I don't think he plays well at home in front of their home fans. Their fans are jittery about his performance and the performance that Joe Flacco gave them last year. He hasn't thrown for over 300 yards as the quarterback of the Browns. Good thing for him last week, he didn't turn it over against Jacksonville. The week before that, he did have 2 interceptions against the Cowboys. I think he is jittery at home in front of the fans. That's what I think. Now,
think there's anything to that, Pete? Do you think that anything to him maybe being a little more relaxed on the road at this point?
I would categorize it as knowing what to expect on the road. He doesn't know what to expect at home, and whether that affects him or not, I don't know. But if he comes out and they come out and score on the first drive of the game, they're going to get behind him. And he knows that better than anybody. Now, the worry you have is obviously, does he put too much pressure on it and all those other things? Is that why he was holding on the ball? I don't think so. I think that was a snowball effect, as I talked about last week. I would expect a better process this week, and avoiding the major mistake that gets you in trouble early. I think he understands better. Again, obviously week to week we can see a major change go positive or negative again, but I think last week was a phenomenal illustration of, if I just don't do anything that's going to kill us, I'm going to get my shot to make the game-winning drive, and he did. Unfortunately, 3 penalties wiped out what would have been a tremendous drive from him, where he was 5 for 5 passing in the fourth quarter, including that 30-yard toss to Judy in the 5-yard thing. If not, the game went haywire at that point, which sort of took away from what was a legitimately, we would have been like, wow, that was a great drive from Deshaun Watson that sealed the game. Because at that point in time, everybody's sitting there, oh, here we go, we're going to lose, which I don't understand how we have not learned from the last year, that this team just will tease you until the very end, and then you're like, what were we worried about? But it was 16-13.
Many years of losing those games.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody does this regardless of your history. But 16-13, Deshaun Watson has a great drive. It looks like he's going to shut up everybody and close out the game. Obviously, they have to punt. Fortunately, to get the safety and all, it works out. But if not for those things, if they just closed out the drive and scored a touchdown, it would change the conversation. Again, that's why I talk about process as opposed to, obviously, the Ravens game was more heroic because he had to make the plays in those situations. But in terms of just doing what you need to do, he can't fix Deontay Foreman face masking the dude, and the guys held. But yeah, again, we'll see. I hope for his sake he can just sort of compartmentalize that aspect and just focus on the football, because this is one of those things where you're in it. I just don't know how much you ever really think about the crowd, and other than the communication aspect of getting the calls and stuff. But beyond that, unless you're specifically hearing people, sort of catcall you and all
Say
these other
things,
things and
yeah.
like literally heckle you. I just think they're so in tune to what's going on in the game at that point. It doesn't really matter. And again, if he has success, they're going to cheer him. I mean, let's be honest. Who are we kidding? They have done it in the past. It's not like they're going to sit on their hands if Deshaun Watson goes out there and it's 14-0 Browns in the first quarter. Like, who are we kidding? So it will take care of itself as long as he does what he's supposed to.
You are watching The React with Pete Smith, and my name is Brad Ward. You can't see Pete tonight, but he is here. Follow him on Twitter @_Pete Smith _. Before we get to our final video tonight, I did want to ask you this, Pete, about the penalties. So lots of talk about this, and you know, I'm sure, you know, in going back and looking, some of these shift penalties and motion penalties are very close and very ticky-tack. They're, you know, not holding for the whole second. And I think on one of the orbit motions, you know, I don't think you can be moving forward, correct? I think you have to be moving parallel or whatever. So, but, you know, 13 additional penalties for 100 yards, a lot of them pre-snap. And then the sequence that you wrote about, of course, obviously, you know, culminating in the silly incomplete pass by Watson, but the face mask holding. Any thoughts on penalties as a whole for the Browns? And they should be fixable, right? They're pre-snap stuff, but that's what we said last week.
Well, some of pre-snap is obviously, yes, you cannot move forward. Some of that is on the quarterback. He didn't let his guys get set. But, you know, with things like holding, it's technique and effort and those type of things. And, like, if you're an offensive lineman and you're going to get beat, particularly in pass protection, more often than not, you're probably going to grab because you don't want your quarterback to get decked. And you'd rather take a penalty, and they would usually rather you take the penalty than just letting them get killed. So, yeah, you've got to do a better job. But it's collective. Look, coaches – get usually what they emphasize, but at the same time, like, a coach can hammer and hammer and hammer, and the guy doesn't get the snap count right. Like, who are we kidding? All at that point, now you're just limited in what you can do. If you have to go first sound or very limited snap count, now you're making it harder for your offense not only to succeed, you're making it easier for the defense to get on you. So, like, I don't doubt that Kevin Stefanski is putting a severe emphasis on this, but, like, you know, one of the complaints, and you wrote about this, was, hey, we aren't seeing much motion. And, like, you're disincentivized to use motion if you are constantly getting procedural penalties because you're illegal motion or whatever. So they've got to get that stuff corrected. And you know, the other part of that is, like, the Jaguars had it too. Like, they lost a touchdown because of a procedural penalty with the illegal motion. So, like, it's possible the NFL is, like, overemphasizing this, but at the same time, you know, for the most part, penalties are penalties for a reason. Like, they are doing the thing. Yeah. The 3 penalties where the Browns got knocked back into 3rd and 36, every single one of those was completely legit. It would have been difficult to ignore them. And I don't want to hear about, well, you could call this on every single play. I watched it, man. Like, Ethan Posek has 2 hands full of jersey. Wyatt Teller's clearly hanging on for dear life. Deontay Foreman's hand is clearly inside that dude's face mask. I can't. There are certainly bad penalties at times where you're sitting there going, man, this is awful. Or Myles Garrett basically ending up in a headlock consistently. But, like, you can't be like, well, our guys are penalizing, but so they're not calling theirs. Like, don't commit penalties and then you can complain. But so that stuff's got to get better. Again, these are things where I don't doubt that won't get sorted out. But obviously, the one that concerns you the most, just in terms of, again, you know, in terms of your process, in terms of your technique, is the holding. They had 5 holding penalties. I mean, that's rough. 2 of those, I think, were James Hudson, or I think 2 were Ethan Posek. You just got to do a better job, and it's going to be difficult. Ethan Posek with 2 last week has got Dexter Lawrence this week, who's the best in that spot. So, you know, how are you going to solve it without just grabbing on and hoping the refs don't see it?
Yeah. And you wrote about him today, right, Dexter Lawrence? Go check out Pete's article at the OBR and everything else that we are covering as we move towards week 3 in what is really kind of gotta have it for sure, just because of the opponent and kind of the state that they are in, but should not be taken for granted either. All right, we're going to finish up with this. I wrote about this too, Pete, and this is Amari Cooper. And it's had a rough first couple weeks to start off this season, and on the heels of a weird off season where he held out of mandatory minicamp, and then was in contract negotiations. Ultimately, didn't get the extension he wanted, but did get the guaranteed money that he was seeking. So we're going to go to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show as they're going to share their thoughts on the Amari Cooper situation. In his if you want to call it a situation, his first 2 games, and the struggles he's had, the drops he's had. The one in particular was really brutal, because it kind of would have turned the first half into, kept the momentum going and potentially led to hopefully a blowout of sorts. Hoping, but here we go with the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
Jason, I want to start with you. What the heck's up with Amari Cooper right now?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know. I'm not going to panic over it. I know people are saying he's washed, he's cooked. It's 2 games. Certainly he's dropped passes in both those games that we're not accustomed to him seeing. What's he got, 30 yards in 2 games? Is that right?
I think he's
got 27 yards in 2 games.
27 yards in 2 games.
And I think he's got 17 targets.
Yeah, there you go.
And
There's
5
his
catches.
stats.
That, to me, is the stunner.
Yeah. I mean, listen, this is obviously not what you're used to seeing out of Amari. If we're having this conversation a month from now, yeah, that's a major problem, but I'm not ready to kill him after 2 weeks.
Can I ask everybody a question? And I'm not suggesting that I have the answer to this, but I asked this question in real time when it happened, and now I'm re-asking it again, and I'll ask it to you guys.
You're asking because you think it's true.
He publicly said he would have been perfectly fine to be traded to San Francisco. When he responded to the rumors, he said something to the effect of, I'd be fine with that. I'm paraphrasing.
It was a cryptic Instagram post. Come on, he didn't come out. You can't quote him on that. All right. Anyways,
it's not the exact words he used, but it was clear what the intent was. What his message was, yeah, you can get rid of me. San Francisco, Cleveland. And I asked at the time, do we think that whenever a team is rumored to be trading a player and they don't offload the player, I've seen it, you guys have all seen it, it can become an issue. And I'm wondering, is that festering underneath here? And do you think that has anything to do with, even subconsciously, his effort?
I think the fact that
Pete, is he asking if he's purposely dropping footballs? I'm confused.
I don't know about that, but he's definitely not wondering it. He's thinking it's happening, that he's not right because of all these other things, and that is why he's asking the question. It's a leading question. This is a guy who's used to covering baseball and basketball, where you have guaranteed contracts, and they can do that. They can pout. Amari Cooper has said flat out, he understands that he has to be good now because, yes, he has guaranteed a lot of money this year. He is not guaranteed anything next year. So, he doesn't have time to pout. He wants to get paid. I know Quincy Carrier has made this point that Amari likes his money. Well, the way to get paid is to play well. And there's and Amari Cooper also has a lot of pride in terms of being a professional and being all this, that, and the other thing. So, no, I don't buy this crap. What I would attribute it to is, one, he's had slow starts before, but some of this just comes down to, for starters, Amari can struggle and we're okay because they've got Jerry Jeudy who's playing well. They had Elijah Moore who's doing good things. And this is why you bring in Jerry Jeudy and those other guys, because you want to be beyond potentially not playing well. let's say he gets hurt. You need to have more guys and carry this thing so that the Browns can go to the next man and get more out of them. And I know at some point Jerry Jeudy's contracts could come up. Amari Cooper's making more than Jerry Jeudy. Like, he doesn't want that contract. He wants more than that contract. That's a big part of it. So no, I don't buy this crap. I think a lot of it just comes down to timing, chemistry, and like in the past, and he and Watson have had perfectly fine chemistry in the past. But like there was less agency in terms of what he was able to do. Like a lot of the time he was going to a specific point and go, this is what's going to happen. This is where I'm going to be. And to some extent that is still true, but there are times where Amari's reading something. And I know there's like one drop where like Amari's clearly thinking something different than Watson is. He like cuts the one inside and Watson throws it. Yeah. Watson throws it like it's gonna be a slant or something like that, and like it catches Amari like awkwardly. Some of that's gonna get sorted out as they get going and get more comfortable, but like it's great that they can get through it and win games when Amari plays like crap, because last year that would have been a major concern. This is why more weapons is good, but like I think Jason Lloyd nailed it in terms of talk to me in a number of weeks where this is an issue. But like, if you're trying to go with Jason Lloyd's point, there have been times where Amari has sort of fallen out and become sort of expendable, where you're sitting there going, why is he making all this money and not playing well? His that's why he's been on 3 teams. It sort of ended his time with the Raiders a little bit. Still played very well, still had a lot of yardage. And then when he sort of ended his time with the Cowboys, still a very good receiver, but like CeeDee Lamb had clearly become the guy. And like they stopped looking at Cooper at points. Now, people who cover that team or fans and stuff like that will sit there and go, well, that was stupid because Cooper was open a lot and they didn't use him. But he's got to sort of get it squared away. But here again, the other thing I would point to is David Njoku. When he got going, he really got going. But like he had issues week 1 before he hurt his ankle that looked sort of disjointed. It's sort of just the nature of the beast with what they're trying to do offensively, that it's going to take a little bit of time. And we talk about all the time, like the lack of sort of consistency within their ability to practice and some of these other things. I'm not worried about it so long, if they win, great. If they lose, it's going to be a bigger problem. But for right now, they can get by it. They've got a lot of open options. In the perfect world, when the Browns offense has been at its best, it's a different guy every week coming up huge. And you want all of them to play well, obviously, but somebody's going to have the bulk of the opportunities just by virtue of how the play, how it shakes out. The fact the Browns have enough talent to warrant that kind of attention is good. At some point, hopefully soon, you'll have Amari, Jeudy, Elijah Moore, David Njoku on the same field, all again working, and hopefully all of them are threats at various points. It's just going to be who's the hot hand, who's the guy who's open, who's got the best matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. And then, we'll go on here because there's some interesting points he does make here. So
they traded for Jeudy and extended him right away. He wanted extension, didn't get it. He got more money, but he didn't get the extension. I think all that plays into it. Hearing your name in trade rumors all offseason, I'm sure that affects
especially
him.
After the year he had.
I'm no doubt. But here's the thing. You're playing for your next contract, whether it's Cleveland, San Francisco, Denver, Pittsburgh, it don't matter.
Yeah.
You're playing for your next contract. And if you continue down that road, nobody's going to pay you. So it's on him to sort of straighten this out and figure this out. And I just wonder, again, I'm not saying he's washed or cooked or anything like that, but clearly there is some rhythm or chemistry developing between Deshaun and Jerry Jeudy, at least as of yesterday. He was looking for Jerry, 2nd and 20. He's going to Jerry. The great throw down the sideline I talked about earlier in the 4th quarter to Jerry.
Yeah.
The rollout scramble when he got away and you said, how'd he do that? To Jerry.
He's still getting a lot of 17 looks is a lot.
But that's what I'm saying is, what are those targets going to be if we continue down this path? What's that target dispersion going to look like 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now?
Well, when you have that kind of production, they always go down.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks know who they can throw to.
Yeah.
Nobody but Amari Cooper knows if that's a factor and why he struggled. My guess is no, only because he's a veteran in the league. He's been traded a number of times. Like, he understands the business. and he would only be hurting himself if that was affecting him. So
Sure.
I just don't see it. Is it possible he's washed up? I mean, he's at the age where some guys just go over the cliff. I think that's possible. And it's possible that he's just in a little bit of a slump and he's going to have a great season starting next week.
What
I think
about
that's entirely possible
not playing
too.
in the preseason? Do you think that, again,
I don't.
kinks that can be worked out?
Once again, coming back to his favorite topic of all time, not playing in the preseason. Coop, the most intriguing question around this for me, Pete, and I don't think it's a reality. I really don't. I think he'll be fine. And I think he'll have a good year. Is the age thing, right? But the thing that makes me feel better about Cooper, and we've talked about this before, is that if anybody is going to age, like he doesn't rely on the elite athletic prowess to get separation, right? He's a technician. He relies on, some nuance to his game to get himself open and outsmarts guys at times. Now, is he a good athlete? Yeah. Is he, know how to use his body and things like that? Yeah. So that kind of lends itself to him potentially having a couple more years into your 30s of production. But he cannot go out and have no production or have a bad year and expect to get paid by anybody.
Yeah, so I mean, he's got otherworld agility for a man his size coming out. He tested insanely well at the 3-cone in the shuttle, and you can see it in his body control. But here again, we're talking about plays where he was wide open and he dropped the ball. He dropped the ball against the Cowboys. There's nobody near him. He just couldn't quite reach out and make what would have been a touchdown reception. He drops the ball. He misjudged how to play the ball, and that's why it looked really uncoordinated and awkward against the Jags. Some of that is chemistry, and some of that is just it caught him in a weird spot. But whatever it is, he's got to get it squared away. I to your point, I don't think the athleticism has declined to the point where he's suddenly going to fall off. It makes no sense to be that precipitous. Because again, even if he had lost some mileage, just catch the ball that's thrown to him, and he'd have a whole lot more production. So
sure,
those things will, I imagine, will get themselves sorted out rather quickly. But if you're Deshaun Watson and you're the Browns offense in general, you're sitting there going, man, we were able to win this game without him making a huge contribution. And now you're sitting there going, hey, if we can get this out of Judy we did this without Cooper playing well. We did this without Njoku at all. We did this largely with Jerry Judy and some Elijah Moore and some of those things. All you're sitting there going, man, if we can get these other guys going, we're going to be this much better. And sort of as you're into the season, you're sitting there going, hey, let's try to get this one element a little bit better this week. And if you can do that over the course of 17 weeks and staying healthy and those type of things, then by the end, you're going to be sitting there feeling good about yourself going into the playoffs. So we'll see how it translates. I think matchups are a huge element in this. What the Cowboys the Giants are going to have this week. I don't think they have anything particularly all that intriguing, or what the Raiders are going to have the following week. And you're going to find where your best matchups are and hopefully exploit them better.
Yeah. Deontay Banks on one corner. I'm trying to see here. Looks like the other corner's hurt.
They've got two very very man-inclined corners, and they're playing zone in Shane Bowen's defense. So
yeah,
Deontay Banks is a straight up here's what you hope happens. Brian Daboll stays employed, Shane Bowen stays there, and eventually the Browns get Deontay Banks for nothing, because he's a straight up man corner. That is what he was at Maryland.
Yeah,
phenomenal athlete. Those type of things. And then they got the dude. They re-signed the guy they had last year. Out of USC, who's been there they drafted in the first round any number of years ago. But they're trying to play zone with Shane Bowen's system, and I don't know that they necessarily have the personnel for it.
Cordell Flat,
old LSU guy, a couple years out of LSU. No, they've got
Adoree Jackson.
Yes, Adoree Jackson there, who's another, you're sitting there going, man, that is a man corner. And so I haven't paid attention to too much of what they've done coverage wise yet, but those are guys who are man corners, and Shane Bowen traditionally has been a zone guy.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, this Jay going back to the preseason here, and that's the reason why. Just funny. It's kind of comical at this point, right?
Sorry, what'd you say?
Jay going back to the preseason as the reason why
Just
this is not
stop it.
working
Like,
yet.
that reminds me. How's Marquise Hollywood Brown doing? Out
Right.
for the season. Like, if Amari Cooper played the preseason, was out for the year, I might be Jay Crawford calling for Kevin Stefanski to be fired.
I'm sure it would be.
It's preposterous to be this upset about it. Again, I'm going to say this. It's how you practice. The Browns were sort of limited in how they were able to practice because of the injuries and stuff. They have a mindset that different from my own in terms of how you want to practice. I think you need to be more physical than they do, but that is the path they've chosen. I think how you practice is far more indicative of setting yourself up for success than freaking exhibition football. You're not more ready because it's on TV.
Right. Yes. I love that phrase. That's perfectly said. Absolutely. Here we go.
I don't buy anything at this point. I don't think the preseason matters anymore.
Wow.
I think
I'm stunned you say that.
I do think a little bit plays into that. I've kind of flipped on a lot of different things from the preseason angle, because he didn't really do OTAs because he was with the contract holdout. So I think as a receiver, people don't know how much they run. I think right now he may be trying to work himself back into shape a little bit, especially running all those routes. And there is something to be said for, I know the contract weighs on you, because the only way you quantify what people feel about you is how much they pay you, right? All the talk and everything else is that's out the window. When an organization says how much they care about you, they show you based on your worth and based on how much they give you.
Yeah.
And for Amari Cooper, he felt like, I went out there last year and I put them numbers up with backups and journeymans and guys off the street. He probably felt he was going to go into this season and get that look and say, we definitely got to extend Amari Cooper, because he was one of the big reasons we got to the playoffs. Come around, they trade for Jerry Jeudy, give him the bag. Then his name is in the rumors with Brandon Ayuk, right? Then you see all the other receivers, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, all of these guys getting big-time contracts, and you're saying,
Jamar Chase didn't get a big-time contract.
Well, he didn't. He turned it down.
No, he didn't.
Didn't they offer him?
Yeah, no, there was an offer, but he was insulted by it.
Yeah.
So basically, he's saying to himself, man, what do I got to do here? And I think that plays a little.
Not be 30 years old, be coming out. I mean, the guys you're comparing him to are guys coming out of their first contract and who are the best wide receivers in the league. He can't do anything about his age. He's not going to get $35 million a year. And the Browns are going to be wary of his age as well. Any team would be.
Well, I mean, timing is everything. He got a $100 million contract at one point. His career earnings are $136 million, and he's being paid $25 million right now. Like, spare me. Like, come on.
Yes.
This is where I don't buy this. He's making good money for the position. This is hardly an insult. That's why I don't buy it either. Like, as I said in the offseason, I totally understand his thought process. Like, I'm going to be 30. I want to try to get one more big contract before I go. And I'm probably a little bummed I didn't get it. But, like, I don't think Amari Cooper's sitting there going, he's necessarily surprised by it. He may be disappointed, but, like, ultimately he's a year-to-year player at this point. And you can still make a ton of money year to year if you play well, because nobody has enough receiver talent, and particularly somebody who can come in. Like, let's say Amari Cooper leaves after this year and he goes to a team that's going to bring in a rookie quarterback next year or whatever, another young quarterback. The Broncos, for example, let's say they move on from Cortland Sutton. You want to bring in a quality, capable veteran for $28 million, $30 million, who's going to, give you a credible number one receiver. Amari Cooper can do that. Now, he may not be thrilled with that idea because he may be wanting to go to more of a contender, but and there may be some opportunities for that. I don't know the answer to that. The Raiders, for example, could potentially be looking to bring him back. Now, he'd be number 2 in that scenario, but whatever. If he plays well, somebody will come with a giant bag of money. That's just how it goes. But he's at a point now where he's going to be year to year. Now, if he wants to go to Carolina or something, he could probably get 4 years, $150 million because welcome to Carolina. But he's got $136 million career earnings. He'll be just fine. Is it possible if pride is hurt? Fine. I don't buy, the OTA thing. I would buy from a chemistry standpoint. I don't buy it from being in shape. OTAs, there was a month after that where they were off, and then a full training camp. Now, I can't speak on to, the intensity in which he was asked to work or worked in training camp. It's possible they had Veterans Days for him, or that maybe they wanted to save him and some of these other things. And there's an element of working into shape. But if you're blaming OTAs for that, that was in June and May. So it's September now. That is definitely not a valid excuse. It's nevertheless possible. But again, I do think from a chemistry standpoint, the OTA stuff could hurt. But allegedly they were going to work out on privately or whatever. And maybe that didn't happen because of the contract dispute. But he got in on time for camp. They got it taken care of. As we talked about when it happened, boom, no more drama. They can get on the same page and get these things worked out. Well, now we're here, so figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to figure it out. And the reason I just don't buy into him being upset is, or whatever, he just can't afford to be. He can't afford to be that, moping or attitude or whatever they're alluding that he is. He has to play well to earn his next contract. And if you watched his press conference last week, and he sounded like the best team. He sounded like he did last year and the year before. He doesn't sound upset. He was incredibly positive about Watson after week 1. I don't know. I'm not buying it, Pete.
$25 million is the most he's ever made in a season. He's actually gotten a pay raise. So again, I think that reduces Amari into something he's not. As we talked about at the time, I never thought he was angry at the organization. I think he just tried to play his hand and see what he could get, and it didn't work out in his favor. But okay, now you got to play. As he said himself, I got to play well because I want to market myself as much as possible. Again, I think it will get solved.
Yes, agreed. A couple more minutes here.
Little role in it, but I would like to see the organization, especially this is where your quarterback comes in. The same thing I said about Deshaun Watson yesterday. I need to see you fight. Because if this don't work here, you ain't getting another spot nowhere else. So you better take advantage of it. Same with Amari Cooper. If this don't work out here, who's giving you this massive bag?
Especially because he's a year older then.
And you're not going to be the number one receiver. You might be 2, 3, depending on who they got. So if you're Amari Cooper, I go to you and say, listen, man, I know it. I get it. It's your money. I understand that you may be feeling a certain type of way. But listen here, we need you, bro. If we're going to get to where we're going to go, we need you to be Amari Cooper. And I get it. But man to man, teammate to teammate, come on, man. We got to, me and you, we got to pick this up. And I think Amari Cooper, like Jason said, he has a track record. I'm not too alarmed. I think he has a track record of being a professional and getting in right back. I think it may take him a little bit of time, but I don't have I think he'll be fine.
I kind of think of him like Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
1 year in New Orleans and then out of the league, right? When Jarvis?
Yeah.
Lightning fast.
Yeah, it was like,
When it goes, it's gone.
By the
At
way,
that position especially.
Amari
Usually around.
I'm old enough to remember when a certain show suggested the Browns weren't serious about the playoffs unless they brought Jarvis Landry back, and that may have been last year.
Yep. I think it was, yes. His point is valid about
Yes, it's quick.
Yeah.
It goes fast. Now, I think the difference here is that, like, Jarvis Landry's body was just completely spent, but
Yes.
Amari's got more to lose in that capacity, and he understands how to play. Like, again, he will get this sorted out. Again, even if his body wasn't right, just catch the damn thing. He would have a touchdown, and he would have a whole lot more yardage.
Yeah, if he would have, yeah, I was actually going to ask that of you here. I'll just pull this down. If he would have just caught the easy catches up to this point, I think that he would probably have a couple decent games at least, if not more. I don't know what happens on that play that he's wide open on Sunday, but if he just catches the easy balls, I'm sure he's sitting here with over 100 yards and whatever, 8, 9, 10 catches and on pace to have another fine season. All right. That's it. This has been the latest episode of The React. Make sure you are locked in to the OBR for everything covering your Cleveland Browns as we head into week number 3. The Giants at home on Sunday. We will have wall-to-wall coverage for you. Make sure you continue to read everything. And before we get out of here, Pete, any parting words for the fans here tonight?
Well, I mean, look, plenty of coverage going on the OBR. You'll be on the air tomorrow, but this is a game where fans should feel confident. They should feel good about this one. Hopefully,
yes.
It would be nice if they can take what they did in Jacksonville and build on it, but they're still a much better football team than the Giants. So whatever happens, they should be coming out of this game 2-1, and we should be talking about what could be a great opportunity for them to get momentum rolling like they did last year. Meanwhile, we're looking at the Ravens and Bengals who are sitting there 0-2 and the pressure's on. So every win the Browns and I guess in some respects the Steelers piles on puts more pressure on those two teams. And I have no problem if either of those teams decides to lay down and die and it's a 3-team race.
I would love it. They are more than welcome to. So thank you, Pete. Great job tonight battling through the illness. We got through the videos I was able to get done here with the power outage. Hope you enjoyed the React. Hit like, subscribe on your way out. Keep it locked at the OBR. For the one and only Pete Smith, follow him on Twitter at _Pete Smith_ My name is Brad Ward, and we are out.